he comes up on my car, drops his bike, pulls his 9 out, and he puts it to my windshield and was like, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, like, "You fucking move, I'll fucking shoot you right now. I'll fucking kill you right now." And I'm like, whoa, dude.
To have once been a criminal is no disgrace. To remain a criminal is the disgrace. I formerly was a criminal. I formerly was in prison. I'm not ashamed of that.
Shit was serious right in there. It was not nothing to laugh about. It's not something that I'm even like, I wasn't even trying to get there. I'm like, I wasn't aiming to be on no level 4. I say now, even when I tell people now, because it's like, I say like, I went in there, like, I feel like, boom, I made it there and I made it out. I don't want to see nobody go there. I don't want to see no one hit there. Yeah, and I ended up, so my points ended up dropping from Corcoran. I go level 3. I'm in level 3 High Desert. That was my second time going in too. I went to High Desert. That place, even level 3 High Desert, was hella political as well. Like, make sure to have weapons on the yard for anything too. And even at that point too, I'm like, I remember like someone's about to pop off, and like, with the whole thing, it don't matter if you're going home. It don't matter if you like, down there to the house. I'm still on the yard. I'm like, ain't no staying in no cell. Ain't no like, oh man, you got to go home. So you can just like, hell nah. But and not that I even wanted to too.
But you got a program. You got a program.
Time it was too. I don't give it. I want to go home. I love my fam. I want to get to the house and whatnot. But I also like know how to program as well. So I'm like, my boots is on to the yard. I know where everything's at. And that's what time it was too. All the way up until the moment I went home, it was like, it was antsy. It was tense. It was like, I didn't know if I was going to go home. I didn't know if my fans were going to be able to come pick me up, on such and such date when I'm coming home. That wasn't even no given. My family thinks it's a given. My family thinks I got a release date coming up. He's down there to the house, and it's like, hell no, it's on the yard. Like someone might get killed. I might end any time. I might be involved in something, get some time added. I might not come home when everyone thinks I'm not coming home at all. I might come home in a body bag. You never know. You never know what might happen on these damn yards. It's just that it's that unpredictable. That's what the hell life is inside prison. And I always say, like, they teach us to survive with the utmost violence. Any issue you have, if I give someone this pen right here and they don't bring it back to me, it's a problem. And someone's like, it's my pen now. You're like, all right, because your people can't look bad. You don't want, because now you represent your people too. So it's like, all right, I'll let do the pen. You don't want to give it back. Now it's on. Like, so graduate. And it's on. So somehow here, it's like, if I lend you a pen, you didn't bring it back, I got a whole box of pens right here.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Another pen out here, but all right. So that's what they teach us inside there. I come home with no form of rehabilitation. I didn't learn any trade skills. They didn't have any of that going on. I learned how to stir a big pot of beans when I was in High Desert. That's like to feed 100 people. I remember I got a job in the kitchen. Other than that, I didn't have no form of rehabilitation. So kind of doubling back all the way to the original question of moments out here where I found myself slipping up and almost going back. There were times, even when I was doing good. So I came home the second time, no game plan, but I had mentally, I'm like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to keep going back. Like, they could have it, they could have that life. They could have it again. Like, they could have all that. And I moved. This is probably the pivotal moment too, was because my crime happened in Alameda County. And for those that don't know, for CDCR, the county you commit your crime in is the county they want to send you back to. Yeah. They don't care if you're from Vallejo. They don't care if you're from Oakland and you commit a crime in LA County, that's where you're going back to. And then if not, you have to prove to them that you have no form of resources out there. All your people's in your hometown, and you have to really prove to them. Otherwise, they'll just send you back. If you have no proof, no one's talking to you or whatever. That's the way life is. I so happen to have my lady who I was dating in that little short period of time before I went back, somebody that I knew from my past. She stuck by me. She has stuck by me for that second term. Coming up to visit me, driving all the way out to High Desert. For those that don't know, it's by Reno. So she was driving to High Desert to come see me, writing, talking on the phone, the whole nine. And I just knew like, all right, this person's like hella solid. Like this is a solid, like when people talk about solid, I figure like you can't truly say someone's solid unless they've been through some of the worst shit and made it out of it with a solid character. That's a solid individual to me. This was a solid lady in my life. Like I love her wholeheartedly. She just happened to move to Hayward. She just got accepted to Cal State East Bay. I actually helped her move before I got busted. I want to get out of Vallejo. Like I need to get out of Vallejo. I need to start over. I need a new environment. I need new people, or actually just no people. I need to get out. So I was telling her, like, I'm about to parole with you. I'm going to parole with you. She was living in a small little duplex. Like, you know, they split a house into two, made a small 700 square feet, one bedroom apartment in the back of a house. And I'm like, I'm paroling home with you. This is where I'm going to go. She was totally fine with it. You know, more than willing to take me home. And boom, I started my whole life over out here. Was doing really well. But saying all this to say, I was doing really well in a point in my life. We ended up moving back to Vallejo when I felt like I was mentally ready. And there was a time when I was done with school and I had like a whole semester and the summer off before I was going to start my bachelor's degree program. And I caught a misdemeanor case. And it could have been a felony. And it was just, it was hella dumb. Like I knew from my upbringing, like you smashing down the street and a cop clocks you and turns the sirens on, you dip. Like you already to the next block before that fucker's even in the car. So you right, left, and you smash off. And normally you just smash. So this happened to me. I had no reason to, aside from just hella speeding, doing like 60 and a 30. And I'm banging down the street and I see the motorcycle cop clocking people. Boom, sees me. He's jumping on his bike. By the time he's just rolling to the curb, I'm already to the next block. And this is a pretty long block. I'm to the next block. So I'm like, yeah, instantly I just bang the right. And I'm thinking in my head too, like, all right, worst case scenario, I'll just pull over, like, boom. But I banged the right, bomb, got to the next block, bang, and I hit a couple turns, and I was like, all right, like, never mind, I guess I'm just still on my way home then. And he caught me on another back street, and I seen him, he seen me, and I'm like, all right, fine, let me just pull over, like, boom. So I pulled over, and he comes up on my car, drops his bike, pulls his 9 out, and he puts it to my windshield. And was like, and he screaming at the top of his lungs, like, you fucking move, I'll fucking shoot you right now, I'll fucking kill you right now. And I'm like, whoa, dude, like, calm down. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, and he rips me hard, arrest. I'm in a rental car too, because I had just gotten into a car accident.
Okay.
Days prior, so I'm in a rental. He arrests me. Boom, boom, boom. Takes me down, like felony, talking about, felony evading, going down. And I actually knew people in the jail. I get there. One of my speech and debate coaches, I was on the speech and debate team at community college. One of my coaches ended up becoming a sheriff. Me in there. He's like, hey, what's up, Eric? Like, hey, what happened, man? I'm already like, oh man, like, I can't talk about that, but hey, good to see you. And like, boom. And I was like feeling kind of dumb too. Like, damn.
Right.
They didn't release me until like 1 a.m. They ended up releasing me on a misdemeanor though. They're like, all right, misdemeanor evading. I ended up, and that one I took a deal on too. I'm like, I told my brother, I did it. He was like, good thing you didn't say nothing. I was like, I didn't say anything, but I'm telling you, I did it. What kind of deal? I'm at a point in my life where I built myself up enough to where I'm not trying to go back.
Right.
90 days in jail. I don't want to spend, you know what I mean? So what could you do? And he ended up, they got probation. So they were like, 3 years probation, do good in a year, you'll get off. And I was like, fuck it, give it to me. Like, boom. So I took the probation. That was on my record. And the weird part was that actually came up because I've been doing work in the juvenile hall. And I remember I had an interview and they wanted to talk about that. Over everything else, they wanted to talk about this misdemeanor that happened in a point in my life where, I was doing relatively well, at least for myself. Right. School, getting ready to transfer, And that's what they wanted to hear about. So talking about like how easy it is to go back, that was a wake-up call.
Right.
That was like slapping the head, like, Eric, man, you've been doing really well. Look how easy it is to go. You could have been facing time. If I was on parole, I would have went and did a flat year.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. I'm coming up with a quote when I was in prison. It was prison is not an option, yet it's still a choice. And a lot of times people get it twisted. They don't realize that every day you have to make the right choice, man, that decision. Even though you say it's not an option, you got to make sure you make that choice to not make it an option, or you can find your butt right back in jail or, in prison, or even dead for that matter, right? So it sounded like in 2015, you kind of looked at it, was like, damn, I made a bad choice. What happened? What changed? I mean, you were still the same person. I'm looking at Eric. Your name's still Eric. What changed? So you didn't like school at all either, and now you're in school. So something happened.
Even doubling back on that, like people in my family, I got like a couple close friends I stay in contact with, a couple of my siblings, like, they laugh and like scoff, like, damn, like you hated school growing. Like everybody knew I just hated. I wasn't really focused. Like, and I actually was the commencement speaker in the 2014 Solano College graduation. So I spoke at the graduation. And I remember opening it up because like a few months prior, I was digging through some old paperwork at the house. And my mom's had like report cards from us, like dating back to like elementary school. And I opened it up and it just kind of blew my mind. I'm like, all right, I thought elementary school, I was like, good. I mean, a couple of fist fights, but, relatively good kid. And I look back and they're like, educationally, they're like, oh, Eric, he just needs to apply. He's a smart kid. He just needs to apply himself. Like he's not doing his homework. He's not doing this. He just needs to apply himself. And I'm like, damn. So dating back, I think that's what it always was in school, is like, the one size fits all model of K through 12 just wasn't working for me. And I hated it. I hated that form of school, but I didn't realize that I loved education. So sitting in jail, I used to read a lot. I used to read a lot of novels. Like I've read the Dean Koontz, the James Pattersons, the Stuart Woods. Like I read all the series, like Stone Barrington. Like I was reading all the time. And there was like almost a year of my incarceration when me and my brothers were cellies. I think it was like 8 months or maybe 9 months. We were cellies and we ended up, we were chunking them in the cell all the time. And one of those fights we ended up getting caught for, really, we were both all fucked up and getting, so we had when we had to sign a marriage chrono, like we were good. And it was weird, but saying all that to say, there was times when my bro was like, bruh, man, like you read all the time. Like you need Readers Anonymous, dude. Like you just read all the time. Like you need some help. And I'm like, man, it gets me out the cell, man. Like this is interesting. These were the first books I've ever read in my life, in my whole entire life. For school, I never went home and read a book. We read in class. So I'll read in class. But as far as going home and taking my book home and reading it, like I've never read a book a day in my life until I got to jail.
Wow.
And that's what my wife used to talk me into going to college. She was like, because I ended up dropping out of Vallejo High School. And even while I was there, like my education, like I can only remember like 9th grade. But the one thing my wife told me was, she was like, damn, but you like to read books though. She was like, that's already a leg up on most students around here. So most students hate to read. They're like, I don't want, 50 pages. They give us heck of homework. So like most kids just don't like to read. You like to read. That's already a leg up. And she was like, and the fact that you tell people about these books. So if I read a good Stone Barrington and Marlo come up like, oh, bro, what you reading, man? I'm like, oh, man, this one's hella good. Like, well, he does this.
Right,
he does.
Right.
It was like, that's school right there. The teacher gives you a reading assignment. You comprehend it. And then you regurgitate it back to them in the form of an essay that they teach you how to write. She was like, that's what school is. And she spent like that whole time I was doing my second term, she would just drop little like nuggets here and there about it. Not on me, not like pressuring me, not like, oh man, you need to do something different. But just like conversationally,
right.
We would chop it up all the time. Just little nuggets here and there. Where I always knew in the back of my head, like maybe I'll try college out, like when I come home. Maybe that is something I do. No formative game plan. Like when I come home, I'm about to apply to whatever local. I didn't even know what school was around here. I didn't even know Chabot College existed. I didn't know anything about the stages, like apply to community college, then you go to the university. I knew nothing about all that. I just had it in my mind, like maybe college is something I will try. So then I come home, but I'm like, man, but a motherfucker right now need money. I need a. I'm not trying to live off you all the time. I wasn't really raised like to just live off my lady, although I was living off her. She was paying the bills. She was doing everything. I just knew it in my mind. I'm like, I'm not trying to live life like this. So I'm just living off you. That's not me. So I went and got a job. And I always tell people nowadays, like I really reflect back and like they put us in the 3 job markets coming home, and which is labor, truck driving, and warehouse. Those are the 3 labor markets. You step into a PAC meeting, the pro officer, like these are the resources they give us right there. And it makes us feel like these are all we're worthy of coming home. Unless you learn how to weld inside or something like that. These are pretty much the little market. Even welder is the labor market, but like most jobs are like entry level, hold a sign, lay some concrete or something. And then truck driving, long routes. I ended up getting a warehouse job. It wasn't given to me. I'd apply a million times. I had interviews, and then they learn, they see this gap on my resume. And they're like, oh man, then they look at the application. At that time, they still had that on the application. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? They still had, before the ban the box movement, they had all that. And I remember, just like trying to mark yes and like being very like, oh man, but I'm changed. And they weren't trying. And I finally got a job in the San Francisco warehouse. And in the interview, they were saying, they were explaining to me why they didn't do background checks. Because they're like, and it was just money. It was just because they were expensive for this small little company to do, and they didn't do background checks. And at that time, I'm like, well, I'm fucking lying on this thing. So I just go on the app. I knew they weren't doing no background check. So I boom, and then I get into this warehouse, and everyone I meet, we're in downtown San Francisco. Everybody there is from the hood. They've been locked up before. Now we're just connecting on like, oh, where you from? Oh man, oh, that's what's up, man. What pen you come on from? Oh man, like, so it's almost like an extension of prison in this little tiny warehouse. And we were locked in. Like they closed the door. We were in the warehouse, they closed it. And we worked until it was time to be let out. And then they opened the door, and then we were let out for lunch. It was weird. It was a weird environment. I just remember like in this mentality, I ended up getting fired. I only lasted there 3 months. I ended up getting into it with the manager when payday came. We were supposed to get paid, and then like nobody was there to sign our checks. And I went bad, like, like state law said, like, if today my day to get paid, you need to run me that check. And I only knew that from my wife. Like she was kind of gamed up on all this. Like, where my check at? Man. And how am I? We were all talking about it all day. Like, they better give us our checks, man. Like, oh, hell nah. Like, shit, they my check. I'm going to do this. Like, I remember that. Hold on, I was going to call. Decline. So I remember doing that. And I was like the only one that lived up to it. We were all talking about it. I feel like I probably got I'm like,
but that's how it is in the streets. Everybody talking about what they're gonna do when the heat come down. The cats, with the gun don't even bust. So it's not unusual to hear that either. You mentioned something.
I look back on them like, yeah, I got hyped up. I went bad on them. I go down. I told my lady, she was picking me up from work, and I'm like, babe, I'm gonna get fired. Like, I just know it. I know I'm gonna get fired. And she was like, let's write a 2-week notice. In the car on pen and paper. She just had a little notebook in her car. Like she wrote it for me. I signed it, and I marched it back upstairs to the manager, put it on their desk, and left. Didn't say a word, just put my 2-week notice and left. And the next day they called me in, and they're like, man, like, the manager feels unsafe here. They feel like their safety is in jeopardy. They're unsafe with you here. Like, they were just intimidated. And you should have just quit. We don't have a 2-week notice policy. And And I'm like, what? All right. Like, shit, I'm just playing it cool. Like, all right, whatever. I'm like, boom, where's my check at though? So they give me my check. I never got it the day before. After all that commotion, never got it. And then I get back to the car, and wifey was like, nope, we calling unemployment right now. So I called and I'm like, hey, like I just got fired from my job. I put a 2-week notice in, and they told me they don't have a 2-week notice policy. I didn't tell them about the other stuff. I just told them I put my notice in. They fired me, and they're like, yep. And they must have called and confirmed, because I got unemployment for like almost a year. Even though I hit my 3 mark working there, I was getting unemployment. And this is in December. I got fired, and I knew that well, my wife was like the semester's about to start. Semester at community college is about to start in January. So I'm like, shit, maybe. And she did my application. She did my financial aid, single male, no job. So I got awarded full financial aid. And at that time, it was like $3,600 a semester of free money to go to school. So I'm like, damn, all right. Plus, I was going to get my unemployment checks because I didn't have to report that. So I'm like, damn, I was adding all this up. And I'm like, damn, that's more money than I was making just working. I can do that for just going to school. Like, maybe I should try this out. Maybe now I'm getting paid to do it. I might as well go give it a shot. So I was a late add into the semester. Like most folks are picking the December. So by the time I'm rolling up, I'm like trying to take whatever I can get. My wife like helped me apply. She's like, all right, you need the English class. So I showed up. The class is full. I emailed the teacher. She never responds back to me. So my wife was like, just show up on the first day, see if you can get in. And she was really pivotal in guiding me through all this stuff.
I want to talk to you about her a little bit, because you mentioned her a lot, and I always like to ask people about their other half. And so it seems like she was very, very pivotal in your life, even from jail all the way through. Before I ask, can you tell the people about your college degrees that you have so far and the one that you're working on? Then we'll go on to the next question.
Yeah. So currently right now, I have my associate degree. And I think it was just like the general associate degree, because I was really focused on transferring. I knew, like I said, my wife was currently at Cal State East Bay. She had just got there. So I kind of had that in my head. She was getting her bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And I was kind of like weighing my options, like what I wanted to do with my life, or as a person. And I was like, all right, well, I like helping people. So I kind of knew that was an avenue. So my major was social work, even in community college. But I think by the time I had enough credits to transfer, I just got the general AA, and I transferred to Cal State East Bay as a sociology major, because at that time they didn't have a social work bachelor degree level. They have, even to this day, they have the master degree social work program. But for bachelors, they have sociology, and they have 2 different focuses. One, I don't remember what the other one was, but I ended up doing the option B, social service option. So I'm like, all right, so that's what I got my bachelor's degree. I graduated community college with high honors, a 4.0 student. I graduated. Yes, sir. Like I'm like super happy. This is the best I've ever done in school. Summa cum laude from Cal State East Bay with my degree in sociology. And then I'm currently, and this was in 2017, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, and I'm like, I was kind of burnt out. Like I was so focused on getting A's, that I'm like, I need a break. I just want to work. I want to build a life. So I started working in the field. And then currently, and it was actually through my current job, I was working at another college. It was actually working that I got re-inspired to go back to school. And I'm currently doing Arizona State's online master in social work program. And I'm doing their part-time 3-year program instead of their full-time 2-year program, just understanding the workload that it takes to be a student. And a part of social work, you have to do 2 internships, two 1-year-long internships, a first year and a second year. So I knew with my current workload, school load, I'm like kind of balancing it all. So I've completed my first year, and I'm in my second of 3 years of the Master of Social Work program.
Good stuff, man. Look, man, I take my hat off to you because they realize, people say once a criminal, always a criminal. It couldn't be further from the truth. Like I always say, man, you showing it. You dividing the odds, man. You beating the odds, and you're doing some great work. Let me ask you about your wife. You mentioned her a few times. Let's talk about her a little bit. What is she to you, man? What kind of help is she?
Oh man, like she is. I swear, she is everything. Like she's everything to me. I love her to death. She is like super solid. Like she's one of the most real solidest person that I've known in my life. I mean, especially aside from like super close family. I'm really close to my core family. She is like a direct extension of that. And she's just always had my back to the fullest. And people just love her. Like she's super real. One of those like real. She's more reserved as I'm more outgoing. She's more introverted. People at work call her the Volt. Like she's one of those people that like she don't gossip. Tell her something real, and someone else is like, "Oh, what's up with Marlo?" Like, well, she just won't say anything about it. Oh, like, I mean, what's up with them? Like,
right.
She had the name of the Volt. Like, damn, Hannah don't gossip. She don't say nothing about nobody. Like, she was just the Volt. And that's her. So when we met, like I said, I've known her from my past. She's from San Francisco. I've had family that, like, my mom's grew up there until like a teenager. She ended up moving to Richmond. I still had family out there. So I had an auntie that stayed out there. And just through family, her family knows some of my family out there. So I've known her before I ever got incarcerated. Like as a teenager, I knew her. And then coming home off that 6th year, I'm reconnecting with people. Like, boom, I'm like, hey, what's up? Hey, like, Hannah, man, like, how you been? I found you on Facebook. Like, what's good? And like, that's how I actually got connected on Facebook. Found her on Facebook, reached out. I'm like, let's hang out, let's kick it. And we started hanging out and kicking it, and kicking it, just learning to like turn into heavy. So we were just dating heavy. Like I was hanging out with her all the time. And I'm juggling. So I was hanging out with everybody too. I swear that too, being home, to me, it felt like being a year home or a couple of years home because I was everywhere. I was still used to waking up at like 5 a.m. Anymore, but I was on that natural prison clock, like up at 5, even if I went at 2 a.m, like I'm just up. So I stayed out all damn night and went to bed. I'm up at 5 starting my day. I'm done at the gym by 7. So I just had this whole transition where I can juggle everything. So that's how we dated heavy, and it was serious enough where she cared about me enough to where when I got locked up again, she stayed by my side. She came up to visit. She came up visit me at San Quentin. She writing me letters all the time. Visit me in a high desert. Like she just stuck by my side, and like I was saying earlier, like I just knew, like from doing time, from talking to other brothers in there, like you just know that like how to judge like someone's character. When someone's solid, when someone's fake. You've seen it. You've experienced it personally with women falling off. You've talked to some other people that had solid relationships that like people just ghost on you. So I knew this from the first time. I'm like, damn, this is what. And I also seen other people who have females that were staying by their side and visiting them on my first term. So now my second term, I'm like, damn, I got somebody like that. I got somebody that's really solid. And I was telling her, like, I'm like, damn, like, I'm going to marry you when we come home. I know that for sure. I don't know when, where, how, but I was one of them. And like, I'm telling you, like, we going to get married, girl. Like, you trust solid. You like, boom, you got my back in the worst of situations. So that's what it was to her. And she's somebody, like I said, she's not somebody who like, she's not controlling. She's not like on me all the time. She's not like glued to my hip.
Right.
Not nagging. She's not somebody who's going to try to like talk you into doing something that she wants. She's not trying to build a brother. She's not trying to like, just mold you into the perfect little person I want you to be. But she's really good. So right now she's a licensed social worker herself. So from criminal justice, she ended up going back for her master's in social work. And then going through the process, she's actually licensed now. And that's, I say all that to say, like, that's her approach. She just talks. We talk very deeply at home. We're very communicative. Like we go home, we talk about stuff. Like I'm not hiding. Like, oh man, like I don't just bottle things up, and she doesn't just bottle things up. And that's into me. And that's how she's helped me in my transition home, where it's like, she's not telling me what to do. Like I said, I went to work. She's just talking about school and talking me up, really. Like, you can do it. You can be successful. You do really well in school, like all that stuff. But then she also allowed and gave me space to come to that decision on my own. And that's why I was focused on school, just like anything. And like, I was actually just talking to somebody recently about like, someone asked me if I believe, like, she was like with addiction, but she was like with a lot of things. Do you think that somebody has to come to terms on their own to make a true transition? And I was like, I wholeheartedly believe that. Like with addiction, with the many things in our life, it has to come from our hearts. It can't be somebody making you. Even if you have 100 people in your corner that's rooting for you, if it's not inside of you, you're not going to do it. And I felt like she that space to come to that inside me. Because by the time I was coming to school, like I wanted to try it. I took one class, so I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. Don't know how it's going to be. But I took that one class. And it actually kind of just ties in because I took a class. It just accidentally ended up being in the Emoja program here. So the Emoja program, for folks that don't know, is a program for African-American students. The studies are focused on African-American, mostly in the program are African-American students. But I got there and I remember I was chopping up with a female. We were just hanging out in the hallway. And me and her ended up just being friends. But we just ended up talking in the hallway, and she was like, you notice, she looked at me and was like, you notice a black class, right? I'm like, I don't give a shit what kind of class it is.
Matter to me, right?
I'm trying to get in. I'm not even on the wait list. So I'm like, I'm trying to get into the damn class. And she was like, all right. So I come in. I tell the teacher I emailed you like a month ago or whenever it was. You never respond. Because she was telling me it's full. The class is full. Sorry, I can't add you. And I'm like, man, like I emailed you in like December. You never responded. She was like, oh, did you? And like, let me check. And she went in her emails and like she dug and found my email. And she was like, damn, you sure enough did. And I never responded. She was like, you know what? Come on, jump in. And I loved the class. The English class through the Emoja program was like very like social justice based. The class, like the material we were reading was really like racialized social justice, like, and I loved it. I really connected to it. I really felt empowered. I, raised my hand all the time in class. Like I really felt connected to it. And I ended up joining the program. I graduated at the Black graduation on campus. I got here. I still got my Kinte class over there.
I see it right there. I got one of those. Yeah, I don't take it.
Yeah. So I stuck with it. I'm like, I love the program. I took all their English or history classes. Like I went through the program and I loved it. That was just like a little side bender. It kind of connected to something else, but at the same time, it's like that's who my wife is to me. She was just really somebody like a true teammate, a true partner, a true talk about a motivator. Like she's been somebody to me like that. Like
and that's what I got.
And been there supporting me.
And that's what I got out of your story about her is that, she definitely motivates you and continues to motivate you. You motivate her as well. I'm sure she inspired to see that you've been able to climb out of, your struggles and get to where you are. So I'm sure, he pushes her, my wife, the bottom line is she helped me in every aspect of my life, man. I wrote a book, from the bottom to the top. Y'all go cop that book. But yeah, from the bottom to the top, man, and from the editing to help me put together my sentences, my stories. She do all that, man. Even this program and everything, she always helping me in every walks of life. So I definitely understand what you're talking about. I'm gonna ask you to take the time out to talk directly to the person that grew up like us, right, in the hood, and probably don't didn't have the luxury of having a nice car, nice shoes, and made some bad decisions, right? And the bad decisions that they have made, they feel like life is over. And I want to ask you to talk to them and give them a piece of advice. What kind of advice would you give them to be able to recover, pull through, and then strive?